I was talking to one of our more faithful viewers and readers the other night down in Washington, D.C., when I was down there for the Night for Freedom. And he's just one of many people that have been urging me for a long time to sue YouTube because they keep kicking me off for basically no reason whatsoever. I've been kind of resisting that for a long time because I think I may have mentioned it here a little bit. My attitude was always that, well, it's YouTube, it's your company. I guess if you want to kick me off, that's within your legal rights to do so. And plus, I really don't want to turn this into the YouTube drama club. I want to keep this focused on the prize, eyes on the prize, which is exposing this enormous level of black criminality, black violence, and the reporters and public officials who are in denial, deceit, and delusion about it. And so the other night down in Washington, D.C., I was enjoying a beverage and a cigar with one of my fellas down there. And he said, listen, I think I know a lawyer who will at least take a look at it. He's a very well-known lawyer. So why don't you write up what you got, and I'll make sure he sees it. I said, well, instead of writing it, why don't I just put it on an audio, and I'll even make a podcast about it, and maybe then he can kind of get an idea for what we're really up to. Hi, this is Colin Flaherty. You're listening to the Colin Flaherty Don't Make the Black Kids Angry podcast. So we're going to go through our YouTube channel. We're going to go through some of the things that have led up to me having that channel and what it was like to lose it, what's at stake, and maybe we can give this lawyer a few ideas whether he thinks it'll be worth his while taking this kind of case. You know, when I was growing up in Wilmington, Delaware, that's the home of the DuPont company, Better Living Through Chemistry. And we always heard these stories. We didn't really know what they were other than, back in the early 1900s, DuPont did something. They got too rich, made too much money, and so the government broke them up into several companies, the remnants of which you can still see around here today. I mean, DuPonts came to this country in the early 1800s at the invitation of Thomas Jefferson, so the legend goes, to make gunpowder. So they would have a domestic source of gunpowder. So they established themselves here in Wilmington because the Brandywine River is here. And that really dips in elevation, and you get a lot of power in the river. So they just set their mills up next to it. The mills are still there, and you can see how they operated the grinding mills from the power from the river. So anyway, after about 50 years, I think they kind of accumulated a monopoly, a worldwide monopoly on gunpowder. I think they made $1 or $2 on it. And it went on for a while. So in the early 1900s, a lot of people said, hey, we're not really down with all this money and influence and wealth and privilege all being concentrated right there on the banks of the Brandywine River, right where Colin's going to be born in about 50 years or so. So we're going to break your company up. So they broke the company up into 3 separate companies, but they also made them divest in things like the Empire State Building, General Motors, Indian Motorcycles, lots and lots of other companies. So you go back and read what was going on. Okay, maybe they had a monopoly, and maybe they had, they had too much money, I guess. But whatever they were doing to attract the attention of the federal trust busters, and when you learn about them in school, right, it's always like this is the government doing some good things or breaking up those big bad people who are making money. We don't, as kids, you don't really learn that much about it other than, well, hey, they had too much money, and that's enough reason to go kick the hell out of them. But here's what we do know about the DuPont antitrust measures of 100 years ago that made them get broken up. Whatever they were doing, whatever market share they had, whatever abuses they were inflicting upon their customers and the marketplace and the world, they were not doing 1/10 of what Google and Facebook and YouTube are doing with their market share, their market power, and to their customers. I mean, it's pretty well documented. We don't need to do it here, how Google has been A, demonetizing, or B, just kicking people off their channel. It's really kind of a several stage thing, right? first they demonetize you, then it's still kind of a mystery exactly how all this happens, because the Google/YouTube algorithm is that's a very closely held secret. That's way more secret than the formula for gunpowder that DuPont had. But we do know a few things. That there are people are posting like 6, 7, 8, 10 million videos a day on YouTube. So the idea that you could have a human face looking at every one of these videos and, putting thumbs up or thumb down on these videos is not really realistic. There has to be a human element in it when somebody gets demonetized, or when somebody gets kicked off, or when you get a strike. There has to be. And the human element came from really kind of ramped up when YouTube went out and started hiring all these people and all these groups around the country, including the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Anti-Defamation League, plus lots of people around the world who would just kind of like watch the videos. But they had to depend upon those people, and they had to depend upon people who were sending in complaints about the videos. Because every time I got kicked off, so I've been kicked off 5 times, maybe 4, maybe 6. We'll settle it at 5. I've been kicked off 5 times, and the progression goes like this. You get a strike, and and that's called, and you're not allowed to do a lot of stuff on YouTube, right? I remember one time on YouTube, there was a late night fight at a gas station. Like 100 black people got out of cars and they started fighting each other. I didn't even watch the video that carefully. I just looked at it, knew it was about 5 minutes long. A bunch of women were fighting each other. I said, okay, here's it is what it is. The lovely ladies are going at it. Anyway, a couple days later, I get a strike because I posted that video. If you looked at the video, one of the lovely ladies just very briefly had a wardrobe malfunction. It wasn't the kind of wardrobe malfunction the good old Colin is normally interested in seeing, if you catch my drift, because anyway, if you ever wanted to see what a 300-pound woman looks like when she's briefly exposing her breast on video, that was it. So I got a strike for that. And if you get 3 strikes, then they terminate you. But the strikes are really driven by people who complain, by people who, report you to YouTube. That's where I have a hunch, maybe more of a human interface at some point comes along. And if you have a certain credibility as a complainer, because you've been identified as YouTube as one of these superheroes with super fantastic sensibilities that match Google and YouTube's perfectly, then your complaints kind of go to the top of the list, and they send a strike over to good old Colin. So that we got a strike for that. What else do we get a strike for? We got a strike once. We're actually gonna play 2 of the audio version of 2 videos that really got me kicked off YouTube for the last time. But when I think of strikes, I think of that time in Green Bay. A teacher's getting up there and talk. She's talking about, we reported that she was talking about black students and black schools in Green Bay. And she was getting up there saying, I've been teacher of the year. I've been a teacher a long time. I can't take it anymore. We've got chaos in our classrooms, chaos in the hallways. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody's learning anything. It's just one big riot every day there. And, everybody at the school board going, oh my God, it's the first time I've ever heard of this. All the teachers are going to her and they're going to me like, yeah, we've been telling you this for a long time. But there was one real brief sentence in there which she said, yeah, students are simulating sexual activity in the stairwells. That was it. It was like a 15-minute talk. And I kind of didn't even notice that one sentence in there. I got kicked off for putting a video out with that one sentence on there because I was encouraging sexuality among children. Yeah, it gets that crazy. Here's another story out of Pittsburgh. This one absolutely got me kicked off. The story out of Pittsburgh was somebody sent me a video. Said, "Hey, Colin, did you see this?" And it was a blurry video. It was It was a blurry small kid surrounded by blurry big kids, and there was no audio on it. But they told us that the small kid was taunted and beaten by the big kids, and how they didn't like that one little bit. So I tracked the mom down in Pittsburgh and I said, "Hey, could you send me the video?" She did. So I looked at the video and the audio, and it was a totally different experience to see this video without the blurs, without the audio, with the audio reinstalled. And it was just completely menacing. This small white kid surrounded by a bunch of older, bigger black kids, taunting him, harassing him, finally beating him. Put that up, get a little email from YouTube. Hey, Colin, yeah, we're going to kick you off for this one. Yeah, you are encouraging violence towards children. Of course, they give you a one line to appeal, right? And the appeal's like, I think it's like 140 to 200 characters, so you got to be thrifty with your appeal to YouTube. I wrote back, said, I'm not encouraging it. I'm exposing it, you fools. Can't you tell the difference? No, they couldn't. So, if you get kicked off 5 times, that means you've gotten at least 15 strikes. And sometimes it'll take, I probably had 2 or 3 strikes pulled down by appealing, but most of the time the strikes just stay up there. So, I probably accumulated like 20 strikes. But really, when you look at my videos, every single video could gather a strike for what they call community standards, because that's the big reason for getting a strike. That's the big reason for getting a video taken down. The community standards are whatever people say they are. Somebody gets up out of bed, the wrong side of bed, they make a complaint to YouTube, gets in the right person, the right time, the right mailbox, boom, that's a community standard violation, check, you're out. That's community standards. I mean, that means it's no standards whatsoever. And that's how they roll at YouTube. So for a long time, I was getting strikes, but I was kind of flying under the radar of YouTube. Because when you get on YouTube's radar, it will change your channel. I mean, it seems like 2 summers ago, there was lots of stuff going on in Europe with Muslims bombing stuff, things they learned from YouTube. And my reaction was, they were telling the people in YouTube, it's like, yeah, you gotta work a lot harder at keeping radical Muslim terrorists off YouTube. YouTube said, okay, great, we'll do that. I knew it. I just knew that meant it was going to be a lot tougher for people here in this country to post videos of a conservative nature, and that's exactly the way it turned out. I mean, we know a lot of people who have been targets of this. We know Dennis Prager, his videos get demonetized. Alex Jones got a strike the other day. These are big business. People playing YouTube videos make pretty good money on them. Before I got on YouTube's radar screen, I was doing okay with that. I mean, I was getting 12 million views. The most I ever had, I hit a stretch where I was hitting like 12 million views a month. Then you go up to your computer one morning, turn it on, boom, you get the big red notice. Boom, you are gone. Get some, everybody goes, Colin, what happened? Well, same thing happened this time as last time. They just got, when people target you, YouTube doesn't evaluate the complaints, they just gather them, and if they get a certain weight, then they start paying attention to you, and out you go. Let's play the audio from a couple of videos that were really the straw that broke the camel's back on YouTube. This first one, both of these, to this day, I'm still kind of surprised that people at YouTube fell for these complaints. I made kind of a tongue-in-cheek video about how at all these chicken restaurants all over the country, there was all this large-scale episodes of black mob violence and black robbery and all this nasty business at chicken restaurants. Then I came across an article, I think it was Atlanta, You'll hear about it in this audio in a minute. Atlanta, where it said, everywhere you go in Atlanta, there's chicken bones. Everywhere. Put that up. Boom. Good old Colin was gone. Let's give that a listen. Boy, this is the second one of these stories we've done in the last day or so. A story where I just won't blame you if you think that the stuff you were about to hear is an exaggeration, that I'm just blowing things up to make a point. This latest case involves white people moving into black neighborhoods. You know what happens when white people move into black neighborhoods? They cause crime. Because everybody knows that if you took all the cops out of the black neighborhood, put them in the white neighborhood, you'd find the same kind of crimes and the same kind of amounts. And the only reason that all these black people are getting arrested for no damn reason whatsoever is white racism from the cops, from the judge, from the jury, from the prosecutors, from the court-appointed psychiatrists, from everybody. It's all a bunch of racism. That's the only reason why. I think the biggest first time I heard this fairy tale was when I heard John Conyers testifying in Congress that the only reason more black people are in jail is because of over-policing. And he always presents these things as if it's kind of a fact that everybody knows. Colin, you didn't know that? You're probably the only person who didn't know that, Colin. Next time I heard it was a few weeks later when the biggest minister in the humble burg of Wilmington, Delaware, got on the channel sponsored by the Wilmington City Council, looked in the camera in the company of the city's PR director and two students who he was supposed to be mentoring. And he reminded everybody that the only reason the crime is so big in Wilmington is because they put all the cops in the black neighborhoods. They don't put them in the white neighborhoods, because if you put the cops in the white neighborhoods, you'd find the same kind of crime and violence and mayhem and disaster you find in black neighborhoods. Everybody knows that. Colin, why don't you know that? You're not really that smart, are you? Are you, Colin? Next time I heard it was in Manhattan. City councilman and a couple of other New York City councilmen and a black councilman, a black moderator, and a couple of white professors. They were all talking about gentrification and what a catastrophe that was for their neighborhood. And what's the worst thing that could happen to your neighborhood? White people can move in. What are the early signs? A white jogger. What's another sign? A white couple pushing a stroller through your neighborhood, a black neighborhood. Oh no, can't have that. I mean, I was waiting for one of these guys to stand up and, start screaming through the audience out the theater doors, yelling, "The white people are coming! The white people are coming! To arms! To arms! The white people are coming!" On some level, though, we do have to start thinking about how you have all these public officials all over the country saying white people are not welcome in our neighborhood. This racial venom, this black and white hostility dripping from every one of their comments. You have to wonder. No, you don't have to wonder. We can observe it. We can see that. We can see the venom. We can see the hostility, and we can see the violence, all existing in the same quantities in the same places, all over the country. Then people come to us and they go, "Well, Colin, I don't know. I don't know how you could ever say those things are related. That's kind of crazy." Now we come to the Atlantic magazine, the venerable Atlantic magazine. This is one of the oldest, most respected magazines in America. Parentheses, that means liberals have been supporting it and reading their stories for a very long time. A couple years ago, the Atlantic decided they were not going to fall behind any magazine when it comes to being down with the cause. So they started publishing stories by the great Ta-Nehisi Coates, a fraud we've exposed on these pages many a time. I mean, all he does is he writes books about his life story, and the life story is the same. I mean, his life story is, I grew up in Baltimore, and every time I stuck my head out of my house, I got beat up by or chased by a bunch of black people. And oh, by the way, that's the fault of white racism, and any idiot could see that. Why can't you see that, Colin? This guy flies around the world on behalf of the Atlantic. Goes to the Aspen Festival of Ideas. Then he jets over on private planes. Then he jets over to Paris with his family. And now we've got these editors at the Atlantic. They're carrying on. They're doubling down because this is what happens when white people move into a black neighborhood. We have conditions for more surveillance and more misconduct. Okay, the story begins with a parade. Every year they have a Caribbean Day parade there. I forget what it's called, but it's they call it a Caribbean Day parade, but it's really a black parade. And every year they drink. There's lots of drinking in the daytime and the evening. The parades at night goes on all night. Lots of property destruction, mayhem, violence, disregarding police orders, that kind of stuff. 2-3 years ago, one of the top aides to the governor of New York was shot and killed. That got everybody's attention. They were saying, hey, that's been happening for a long time at that parade. Is that really a normal thing now? This year, even Mayor de Blasio got sick of it. So he put a bunch of cops in there, put a bunch of horse cops and lots of policing there. It turns out that having police causes crime. And that's how this article begins. After they taught, so they got one of these, what a racket this journalism thing is. You get some idiot to say anything and you inflate them and then make it seem like they're much more important and much more interesting than they really are. So they're talking about this, what's it called? The Jouvert parade. It derives its name from a Creole term for daybreak. And, went on and on and on. Then they get to the part where they go, well, why are so many people being arrested over there? What's the problem? Here's Imani Henry, the president of the Police Accountability Group Equality for Flatbush, parentheses, that means he's unemployed or on welfare, and he's got a lot of spare time to put together groups that consist of him and some willing reporter that he dupes on occasion, such as right now. Let's hear what Mr. Imani Henry has to say. Quote, there's a criminalization of our neighborhood. Mr. Imani Henry believes it is part of a stepped-up law enforcement as part of a larger pattern of increased surveillance in gentrifying areas. And the police actions have coincided with increased gentrification. That claim is not just speculative, says the reporter. After the past 2 decades, gentrification has become a norm, blah, 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 blah. And this is what happens. This is what really happens in gentrification. They often leave out a critical side effect that disproportionately affects communities of color. We are, of course, talking about criminalization. Isn't that one of the great words of the last 20 years? We are criminalizing you. So if you go out and break into my car and I catch you, you are not committing a crime. I am criminalizing you. The ability of the liberals to turn these words around and to use the passive voice and just invent things is limitless. George Orwell said, control the word, control the thought. And this is in action every day. Whenever you see a word like criminalization. Atlantic Magazine, in for a dime, in for a dollar, just goes on. One of the expectations has to do with the perception of safety and public order. You guys didn't believe me when I told you that the expectation of safety is a white thing, did you? You didn't believe when I talked about that article down in Baltimore called Baltimore, you're breaking my heart. Dozens of black people, including people who worked for NPR and lots of other news sites in Washington, Baltimore, took to the web to condemn that woman for writing an article about crime in Baltimore, even though she came out and said, oh, this is not about race. Oh, they got that squared away really quickly when they said, oh, hell yeah, it's about race. It's about your race, your expectation of safety, just because you're a white person. Well, that's not how we roll in Baltimore. That's not how they roll in New York with Mr. Hamani. Let me just blow through some of this article. Long-term residents begin to find themselves tangled up in a criminal justice system for so-called quality of life crimes. Where police are drawn into neighborhoods where they didn't necessarily enforce nuisance laws before. Nuisance, yeah, I'm walking down the street, somebody punches me in the face. Yes, that's definitely a nuisance. Here we go. It's not a question of how many people are committing crime. It's a question of where police are directing their law enforcement sources, said Mr. Butler. This guy's great, Paul Butler. He's the former federal prosecutor in Washington, D.C. Does anybody remember his name? If you do, I'll give you lots and lots of extra brownie points for that, because I didn't remember his name. Wasn't 100% sure anyway. But I kind of thought it was this one guy. Let's finish this quote. It's not a question of how many people are committing crime. It's a question of where police are directing their law enforcement resources, because wherever they direct the resources, they can find the crime. This guy was a federal prosecutor in Washington, D.C. When he left, he became a law professor. He wrote a big article in the Washington Post saying black jurors should not vote to convict black defendants because there's too much white racism built into the system. Because cops are always picking on black people, letting white people getting away with all this crime. How about a little bit of racial jury nullification? That's Paul Butler. Keep it up, Butler. Atlantic will give you your own private plane, too. Blah, blah, blah. San Francisco, disproportionate strike, blah, blah, blah. The white people are taking over. The gentrifiers, they don't want to share. They want to take over. Yeah, all those white hipsters, they move into a neighborhood. They don't want to share. They just want to be able to walk down to their coffee shop in their sandals and in their gender-neutral carbs. That's all they want. According to Butler, here's what that is. They're not wanting to share. That's taking over. And one of the tools they can use to take over public spaces, says Mr. Butler, is law enforcement. This Butler, good Lord. Yeah. Then he talks about the famous Spike Lee case, where Spike Lee, dad is up there doing drum circles in some part of Brooklyn, I think, and the neighbors go, "Hey, do you think we can, limit the drum circles to 12 hours per day?" Spike Lee went crazy when that happened. Blah, blah, blah. Lots more stories about all the cops are attacking black people for no reason whatsoever. Da, da, da. Oh, here we go. Now we're talking to Kathleen Lanier. Now they bring up Kathleen Lanier. She was the former police chief of Washington, D.C. from 2007 to 2016. What happened to your city during that time, Kathy? Is there one human being on this planet besides you who think you made a difference to make Washington safer? Or did Washington become a more dangerous chocolate and dirty city on your watch? Did your crime numbers go down, Kathy? Are there lots of places you can go in Washington now where you couldn't go before? Or is it just the opposite? I've done so many stories on Washington, D.C. I think that the most troubling one was the one we did where they started a program about 10 years ago where they gave murderers second chances, kids, teenagers. All of a sudden, they have hundreds and hundreds of people committed who are guilty of murder and rape and unbelievably horrific violence. They're back on the street doing it again because some idiot like Kathy Lanier and the people around Washington, D.C., they know that that one crime doesn't define my life. So go out there and be a good person. I know. I wouldn't believe that either if I didn't see the videos of it. Some residents in these ghettos can be overwhelmed by the sudden increase in security, which is not always confined to public law enforcement. They're actually hiring security guards to keep themselves safe. Why is that? Why can't a white person walk into a black neighborhood? Why do they feel the need for security and police? What's that all about? Are they making that up? Are they imagining that? Are they? It goes on and on and on. Lots more stories about, oh man, these cops are. That also says, yeah, the more white people, that means the more opportunities there are for police abuse, because everybody knows cops are always abusing black people, right? Gentrification and police violence don't necessarily have a casual relationship. Period. And okay, let's let the other shoe drop. But stepped up law enforcement does create conditions for more potential misconduct. Good Lord, people make a living writing that idiotic stuff. You couldn't get away with that in 6th grade where I went to school. Sister Marian DeShanta would say that doesn't make sense. That's the famous Obama construction he got away with so many times over so many years. He would say, well, I believe in competition. That's why we have to nationalize healthcare. I believe in free enterprise. That's why we have to take over GM. I believe in fairness. I believe in one country, a black, not a red country, not a blue country. I believe in the United States of America. That's why we have to have special programs for black people, including one called Academic Excellence for African Americans. I mean, that's what all this is. And on they go. Eric Garner, Butler. Whew. Okay, here's one of my favorite parts here. And don't make the black kids angry. We spend a lot of time talking about Bronx juries. Whether you're in the Bronx or Brooklyn, you get all these white people moving into these neighborhoods. If somebody gets clunked on the head, they're not going to do the witness intimidation thing. They're going to see, if they see something, they're going to say something. They're going to show up in court. They don't care about stitches for snitches. They're going to go to court. They're going to testify. They're going to get called to jury duty. They're going to follow the evidence. Atlantic Magazine doesn't like that either. Because it says gentrification has long-lasting impacts on the criminal justice system that go far beyond police surveillance. As cities become whiter, so do juries. In Washington, for example, it's not unusual to have a predominantly white, if not all-white jury in a predominantly black city. I wonder, now tell me, how does that happen? How do you get all-white juries in a black city? Does it have something to do with people who report for jury duty? Does it? Here comes Mr. Butler. Quote, jurors often have different life experiences based on their race. And so if the defense is the police lied or the police planted evidence, that's something that an African-American juror might well believe or find credible. A white person might find that hard to believe based on that person's experience with the police. The public debate over how to best deal with gentrification often brushes over these tensions, focusing solely on economic impacts. No, we didn't brush over anything, you fool. There are some who say gentrification is a natural part of urban development, while others say local governments should do more to regulate housing markets. But there's one question cities haven't really reckoned with as they evaluate changing neighborhoods. Are they prepared to decriminalize them? Oh, I love that. I love that. In other words, are you prepared to continue to ignore black criminality even when there's a lot of white people around who don't want you to ignore it? Boy, all my neighbors, people moved into this where I stay with my brother. It takes them years to get used to the fact that when they call the cops because of vandalism or violence or harassment or threats, it just takes them a long time to get used to the fact that the same people who are responding to the police calls, one minute, the next minute, they're in front of a crowd telling everybody how we're not going to arrest our way out of this mess. And how we know that the only reason there's so many black people in Wilmington and hundreds of other cities around the country doing this kind of violence, mayhem, destruction, because they haven't had enough midnight basketball, enough free stuff in the morning, enough free stuff in the evening, enough free stuff at supper time. And we just have to kind of jigger our combination of free stuff. And when we get that right, oh, it's going to be beautiful. I'll tell you what, Spike Lee, this guy, and the guy who wrote this article, what's his name? Abdallah Fayyad. editorial fellow at The Atlantic. I'll tell you what, Abdallah Fayyad, Spike Lee, Paul Butler, all the rest of you idiots who are trying to normalize this black on white criminality, consequence-free criminality. You guys might not know it, but I think we have some common cause. Listen, all you got to do, whenever you see a white person in a black neighborhood looking to buy something, maybe if they have strollers, just give them a copy of my book, Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. That will let them know about the enormous amount of hostility and violence that is now normal black on white in this country, and how so many white people, public officials, and reporters are in denial, deceit, and delusion about it. Just give them that. Don't worry about The Atlantic. Nobody gives a damn about The Atlantic. Except for some college professors who subscribe to it as part of their office budget. Nobody gives a damn about The Atlantic. You want to scare white people out of those neighborhoods from ever moving in the first place? Give them that book. And then if when they do become victims of black criminality in their new black neighborhood, if they decide to move in after all, you can just shrug your shoulders and go, we told you. Didn't you read Colin's thing in there about critical race theory, routine activity theory? Routine activity theory says that a white person in a black neighborhood can routinely expect to be the victim of black crime and violence. You didn't read that part in there. You didn't see where the city of Chicago had to pay $22 million because the city released a white girl into a black neighborhood. They should have known that releasing a white person in that neighborhood was an unbelievably dangerous thing. They should have taken her, said the judge, they should have taken her down to the zoo and put her in a lion's cage. That would have been safer than releasing that girl into the neighborhood in Chicago where she was taken up to the 7th floor of a public housing project, sexually assaulted and thrown out the window. She survived. Permanent mental and physical damage. $22.5 million. And the judge said it was because of routine activity theory. He could make that ruling. Papers in Chicago didn't have any idea what to do with that story. Good Lord, it was like panic in the newsrooms. Here's a judge saying that black people are naturally disposed to attack and harass white people. In other words, what every white person in Chicago knows about why they cannot go into certain no-go zones. These newspaper editors, man, they were doing the Tylenol, aspirin, they were getting headaches. I don't know if they were doing anything stronger. They probably were. Because they knew they had to print that story day 1, but they were never going to print it day 2, 3, 4, or 5. Because that kind of story sure gets those black kids angry. And this is the last video I ever put up on YouTube. This is what got me kicked off for good, finally. Well, I decided not to go back. It's from the Atlantic magazine. And boy, if anybody has read the Atlantic or used to read the Atlantic is now, it's one of the oldest magazines in the country. I think Steve Jobs' wife bought a stake in it last fall. But Atlantic now is down with the cause. Every issue, every story, it's just cause. We're down with it. And so they ran a story that, even by their own standards, was kind of weird. The Atlantic is the home of Ta-Nehisi Coates. He's the black guy born in Baltimore, makes a living going around writing books and talking to rich white people, telling them how much they suck. And when they're in between enthusiastic applause for his message, they're asking him if they can give him more money for some more speeches. Anyway, so Atlantic ran an article, this was just a couple months ago, where it said, gentrification, white people moving into black neighborhoods forces black people into a life of crime. They just can't resist it when they see white people in their neighborhood. They have to commit a crime. And so, because, to me, when we look at this criminality wildly out of proportion, that is what it is. That's easy to see. if you want to see, if you're not in denial about it. It's easy to see, easy to identify, easy to see how as bad as it is, it's really worse because they're always fudging the numbers on it. We talk about that in my books, Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. But the real crazy people, and that was kind of the point of this thing you're going to hear in a minute, the real crazy people are the ones who look at it right in the eye and go, no, Colin, A, I don't see a thing, but B, if I do see anything, white people are causing it to happen. That's how batshit crazy they are at the Atlantic magazine. Now the damage, well, let's just watch this, then we'll talk about why that might be more important than it seems. I have a message for all of you people who think it's funny to keep sending me videos of black criminality connected to fried chicken. Do you think that's funny? Do you think this channel is here for your amusement?
But I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you? I make you laugh? I'm here to fucking amuse you? What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
I mean, the first one you sent me was, I think this was down in Alabama or Texas, where a fella and his lovely lady were at a drive-thru restaurant and the fried chicken wasn't hot enough. He got out of the car, beat the crap out of the lady, beat the crap out of the lady's daughter. Do you think that's funny? Or are you just trying to keep on dwelling on negative experiences that whites have had with blacks that often fit into racial stereotypes? That's how the Philadelphia Inquirer puts large-scale black mob violence when anybody wants to talk about it. How about this negative experience with fried chicken down in Baltimore?
It started with an argument over chicken bones. It ended with 2 people shot, including a 90-year-old great-grandmother. Today, Baltimore police say they've arrested the man who committed that shooting in April. Shelley Orman reports the suspect has been arrested twice this year for violent crimes.
It started with a 90-year-old woman telling him to pick up his chicken bones that he was throwing on the ground.
The he in this case that police called the chicken bone case is Gerald Gaffney.
I feel okay.
The 90-year-old great-grandmother is Elizabeth Brown, known as Miss Toots to her neighbors. A bullet ricocheted and hit her in the ankle.
I'm glad I didn't stand up. I may have got shot in my body.
She spoke with Fox 45 as she was released from the hospital 2 days after the shooting, still unable to walk on her own. Police say Gaffney fired the shots that hit Miss Toots and another man on Harlem Avenue April 15th.
Luckily, the 90-year-old woman and the 57-year-old man had non-life-threatening injuries, but again, they have scars that are going to last a lifetime.
They say Gaffney was mad after a fight over chicken bones.
Now,
oh, you're gonna think this is a riot. What about this dude who went into a Popeyes, didn't like the price of the chicken, so he pulled out a gun and he shot that person on the counter? What about this dude at McDonald's? Went through a McDonald's, ordered some chicken McNuggets, didn't like the way his order came out. All of a sudden, there's lots of argy-bargy involving tear gas, pepper spray, and mace.
3 fast food workers were attacked overnight through the drive-thru window.
NBC Charlotte's Richard Devane now live on the scene. Richard, This is one of those rare instances where you actually speak to the suspect there on scene. Did he give any indication about why he did this?
Yeah, he said basically because it was a mistake over his order. Now, we want to say this, that neither he nor any of the employees here at McDonald's were arrested because of this incident. Police said right now they're just going to let everything work its way out. They made no arrest, but they were here for a while after this apparent situation escalated into a customer macing employees. Now, let's look at some video. When we arrived, police, this whole incident had spilled out into the parking lot. Police were there talking to both the person who maced the employees at the McDonald's as well as those McDonald's employees, all outside this McDonald's. It happened around 4 o'clock. The basic reason was that person told us he came to the drive-thru. There was a problem with his order. When he pulled up to the window, things escalated, and that's when he took matters into his own hands.
I maced him because he jumped out the window on me. Who jumps out the window on somebody and can keep their job? Who does that? Yes, I had mace, and yes, I retaliated, but that's legal, and that's self-defense. So that's all that was.
He's a might want to do what? A Hawthorne man has now been charged in a violent attack on a fast food employee in Downey. CBS 2's Rachel Kim is live outside the Raising Cane's with details. Rachel?
Well, Rick, you can see behind me just how long this drive-through line is here at this Raising Cane's. But Downey police say a manager here got attacked when a group of guys decided they weren't going to wait their turn. This is YouTube video showing the suspect and another man filling an empty Gatorade bottle with liquid. They're cursing during the whole time. At one point, you can also see a third man in the back seat. They then pull up to the drive-through window of Raising Cane's. As you're about to hear, the trio came back to confront and assault the manager after the manager refused to serve them for allegedly cutting into the drive-through line.
Sorry? Why you didn't take my order? No, I didn't. You didn't say no cameras.
Yeah, where the cameras at?
What are you talking about? No, I didn't.
Show us right now.
You can't prove it.
So
you can't prove it.
Either get out of my drive.
You can't prove
I
it.
got 911 on the phone.
911 to do what?
After the attack, you can hear the men cursing and calling the manager names before driving off. But it wasn't long before they were caught. Since they decided to record the incident and post it to social media, Downey police tracked down the man who threw the bottle and arrested him. Here's reaction from customers at Raising Cane's.
I think people just go too far. Sometimes it's not necessary. The guy was just doing their job. Honestly, that was really foul of them to do that. Like, why would you even do that, record that? That's not funny. That's not okay. Well, I'm glad he got arrested.
27-year-old DeAndre Lorick of Hawthorne faces an aggravated assault charge. It's unclear how serious the manager's injuries are. Raising Cane's had no comment about the incident. Back to you in the studio.
And this is from Chicago. We got a street cameraman up there who is documenting a big shooting in Chicago. Somebody shot another guy because they were arguing over the last piece of fried chicken. Oh, you must be rolling on the floor now. Well, if you're the kind of sick, twisted person who thinks all these stories about black criminality connected to chicken is amusing, well, you're going to bust a gut over this story, you sick, twisted person. Here's the headline out of Atlanta Magazine. What's with the chicken bones all over Atlanta? I don't know, but a new Instagram account is determined to find out. Let's just blow through the article here. What's up with all the bones? A guy with a Twitter account called Random Chicken Bones of ATL wants to know. Perhaps our city's nickname should be the city that's too busy to properly dispose of chicken bones, because they are all over Atlanta streets and sidewalks and parks. I stepped on one pumping gas today, said Atlanta Magazine's own marketing director, Jen Agnew. That looks like the Miller Union parking lot on a Sunday morning after compound closes, said Chef Stephen Satterfield when shown this photo. Instagram and Tumblr accounts have been chronicling this phenomenon for years. Wings of Atlanta launched in May 2014. Atlanta Magazine's former design director Liz Knopfli began documenting the detritus under the hashtag of Atlanta Chicken Bones later that year. I moved from Boston to Atlanta and just started seeing the bones everywhere, she says. I sadly never see them in Chicago where I live now. Others joined in over time, and then on March 18th, two chicken bone photograph archivists, boy, that's easy for you to say, launched an official Instagram account called Random Chicken Bones of Atlanta. We had to find out who they were and what inspires their passion. So here's the interview. So you're both male? Speaker 1. Yeah, 2 dudes. Beyond that, we really don't want our names or identities out there. Speaker 2. As soon as you put a face, race, or age to this, the whole message and point gets misconstrued. Wow. So why did you start this thing? It's kind of, Speaker 1, it's kind of dumbfounding how many chicken bones there are everywhere here. It's like nowhere else. I lived in Chicago. You don't see it there. I lived in Chattanooga. It's not there either. The other thing is, they aren't centralized to just one area like the old 4th Ward or Georgia Tech. It goes everywhere. That shit's deep. Do you scout for chicken bones in different neighborhoods, or do you just photograph them as you go? Speaker 1. As I am living, I just see them. That's the best time to do it. The other guy. He skates a lot. So I mean, as you're skating, they're everywhere. First guy. I went out today skating and saw a couple and took pictures of them. Other guy. It just happens. That's kind of the best part of it. None of it's really forced. Question. Is there any significance to the launch date, March 18th? First guy. You don't know how far back this has gone. 4 years ago, when we first came down to Atlanta, we were just sending pictures to each other, texting and Snapchat, and then I guess we got drunk one night and we were just like, what if we put this on Instagram, man? Other guy. Atlanta needs it. Other guy. Yeah, the city needs it. Question. Where are you from? From like the Roswell area. Other guy. Yeah, I'm from the streets. You feel me? Don't discredit me. Other guy. We had a struggle. Question. I just moved here from New York City, so I have no cred in the South so far. Speaker 1. First guy. What's the bone game like there? Now they're interviewing the magazine writer. I've seen an errant chicken bone or two, but not quite this number and variety. Speaker 2. It's like it rains them. Speaker 1. It was one of the first things I noticed when I came to Atlanta. You turn any corner, you look at your feet, and you will see a chicken bone on every street. It's crazy. Speaker 2. You'll see them on the corner of every building. Magazine question. Why are they so prevalent? Speaker 2. I'm guilty. I drop chicken bones all the time. Speaker 1. People are hustling. That's the other thing. People have places to be. They don't have time to lounge around and work on their chicken. We're always on the go. Question. Why so much chicken? Speaker 1. It's Atlanta. We love chicken. We love fried chicken. We love chicken wings. I don't know. It's just a thing. Everyone has wings. Speaker 2. Georgia's the #1 producer of poultry. I guess that's part of it. Question. Do just the two of you take all the photos? First guy. Yeah, but I've gotten so many submissions. It's kind of stupid. Speaker 2. Yeah, there have been a lot of submissions recently, but all their angles suck. Question. What makes a good angle? It's almost like a dinner plate. You know how the chefs will have that overhead picture? It's almost like an urban buffet staring right back at you. Who is that magazine? Who is that in your Instagram profile photo? First guy. That's just from a random YouTube video where you have received some flack for it, but people take it way too seriously. At the end of the day, we're just posting pictures of chicken on the street. Question. Why did you get flack? First guy. Because it's a black guy eating chicken. Speaker 2. I'm black, by the way, so I can completely defend this. It's just a screenshot of a random effing YouTube video. First guy. And if someone feels upset about it, I'm sorry. But I'm not trying to offend anybody. Everybody's responsible for all these bones everywhere. It's not just one person or group of people. It's our culture. It's our culture here in Atlanta. And that's kind of what makes it the best, because anybody can drop chicken bones here. Magazine. Question. Have you dropped chicken bones? Oh, for sure. Other guy. We drop chicken bones all the time. Come on, we're always on the go. Magazine. Isn't that littering? One man's trash is another man's treasure. Magazine. So you love chicken? For sure. Other guy. We had wings the other night at Hooters. I didn't want to go at first, but... Other guy. He didn't want to go, but we made him go for the wings, and they were actually delicious. But Jack's Pizza and wings? Great wings. Other guy. That's true, but they take forever. Other guy. Their service is awful. Other guy. Oh, the local. Oh, the local has good wings. That's a good Monday night wing spot. They do karaoke, too. Magazine, why do you think people are into random chicken bones of Atlanta on your Instagram? First guy. We live in a meme culture. Content with knowledge or information is not relevant to people. They're just scrolling real quick on social media. They're like, oh, chicken wings. That's funny. Magazine. Why chicken bones? Why not gum stuck to the sidewalk? First guy, because they're everywhere. Next guy. I'm literally staring out the window right now, and I guarantee you I see one under this tree. Magazine. Do you spot them more often now that you're looking for them? First guy. Oh, I'm conditioned to it. Second guy. We have the eagle eye now. Or bird's eye view on this shit. What are your plans for the future? Asked the magazine. Until Mayor Kasim Reed figures out why this is happening, we're going to keep documenting it. We want answers. Next guy. Yeah, I want to get to the effing bottom of why there are so many chicken bones. Next guy. If I saw a UFO flying over us, I wouldn't even care. I just want to know what's up with these chicken bones. So you think it's amusing that Atlanta magazine is reinforcing negative racial stereotypes? Reinforcing negative experiences that white people have had with black people that fall under the category of racial stereotyping? You think that's amusing? You think this page is here for your amusement? I only have two things to say to you about that.
And I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
All we're going to do is make a lot of black kids angry.
You know, the thing about the Atlantic magazine is they punch above their weight a little bit. This is a favorite magazine in the living rooms of lots of the Northeast liberals, lots of liberals all around the country, lots of reporters, lots of editors, lots of TV people, lots of owners of these things. They take the Atlantic. So when they see these stories in the Atlantic, there's a lot of places like that. Atlantic, Vanity Fair, New York Times, LA Times, Chicago Tribune, places like that. They really kind of set the tone for other coverage around the country. And so when the Atlantic goes around talking about relentless white racism all the time, everywhere, that explains everything. That makes a lot of people notice, and that's exactly what we just heard here, that basically black people are victims of white racism all the time. And when I pointed out that was a very silly, stupid, and wrong thing to say, I got kicked off of YouTube. Now, maybe it was just spontaneous people sending in complaints. My videos popped up into their news feed, their suggested videos, and they would say, "This is so outrageous what Colin says. I'm going to complain to YouTube." More likely than that is, there are people that work for George Soros. There's a group called Conservative Media Watch, Conservative Web Watch, Web Watch. They keep an eye on these things. I know that they've watched and read lots and lots of stuff they've done. I know that because I see it on their Twitter feed. So maybe somebody like that just organized, like one day, you could have like 10 people say, okay, let's send 10 complaints into YouTube within 1 hour. I mean, they do that on Amazon. You know that, in your books. They'll get a bunch of people to attack your book on Amazon too. So those are the videos. I was looking at I was trying to find one video. That one about the kid in Pittsburgh. So I went to my little Dropbox account, and man, I mean, we've done a lot of videos here. And I just put in, Pittsburgh. And over the last 3 years, we've done 50 videos on Pittsburgh. And tell me, Pittsburgh's not one of our big targets. Hell, we've done a hell of a lot more videos than, say, Milwaukee. But in Philly and Baltimore and all these other places. But there's Pittsburgh. I mean, some of the names we've got in Pittsburgh. We've got the DA in Pittsburgh talking about witness intimidation. Pittsburgh, we got large groups of black people rampaging through downtown Pittsburgh during one of their big summertime festivals near the river. Here's an old lady in Pittsburgh getting the hell beat out of her. There's a peace memorial in Pittsburgh where a bunch of black people started causing argy-bargy. There's another old lady. There's there's a knockout game in Pittsburgh. There's a bunch of violence at a football game in Pittsburgh. This is black violence. Pittsburgh bus fight. 9-year-old boy beat up. Pizza driver robbed. Large let-out fights. This goes on and on and on. Fights on attacks and robberies on hiking and biking trails. I mean, this is a very, very long list, just Pittsburgh, but it's kind of representative of the stuff we do here over a period of time. So just for the benefit of any lawyer who may be listening to this, I'm just going to back up a little and tell him how we got started and really what we do. So I started writing about this after my brother and I were doing a radio show at WDEL in Wilmington. It's a big talk station there. And I read in the paper that 13 Asian kids went to the hospital. That's because they went to South Philadelphia High School. And it's like, oh, they were protesting bullying, said the paper. And I was going, what? South Philly, that's a black high school. I mean, they're not really telling us what's going on there, is it? So I looked into it. Sure enough, black people had been attacking, taunting, robbing, harassing, threatening Asian kids every day for years at that school. When they went to the teacher said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. Nothing happened. They went to the principal. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Nothing happened. It kept getting worse. Then they finally went to the superintendent. She said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. Nothing happened. So they got a lawyer. They actually 13 of them ended up in the emergency room one day. They got a lawyer. They did a strike, got some news attention on it. Then the superintendent started whispering to people. Asian kids did not know how to act around black kids, so they were provoking them, and that's what was causing the violence. She gave them a flyer, how to act around black kids. These were Asian immigrant kids. All they wanted to do was go to school and work and learn. So when I saw that, and I started asking around, going what's up with that? I was asking other reporters at this radio station. I was going, hey, what's up with that? And they looked at me and said, Colin, race had nothing to do with that. That's just like a neighborhood thing. Huh. The more people who said that, the more by this time I knew what was going on. The more people who told me that, the more I knew there was something really, really weird going on here. I mean, this wasn't my first time being exposed to any of this, anything to do with the fellas and their lovely ladies and how the crime and violence is wildly out of proportion and how people blame it on white people all the time. I grew up in a little town called Wilmington, Delaware, which is now a chocolate city. So I had lots of exposure to that there. When I was a reporter in San Diego, I did a couple stories on hoaxes. I did 2 stories in 3 weeks on hoaxes from the same neighborhood once. Both involved black people saying they were attacked by a bunch of white people, when in both cases it wasn't true. There used to be a guy who was the chairman of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. He was a Reagan appointee. His name was Clarence Pendleton. I used to hang around with him. I used to help him write speeches and newspaper columns. Those things got a lot of attention. So I kind of been reading and writing and observing this whole black on white, black on Asian, black on young, black on old, black on gay, straight, kitties, turtles, and puppies thing for a long time. But I didn't really kind of but I thought I was out of the reporting racket until I got back into the radio thing. So then I started asking, then I started seeing this stuff happening all over the country, and the pattern was always the same. And even though it's changed a little bit, not that much. It's like in Philly, be a large group of teenagers rampaging down the street, beating up people, pulling people out of restaurants, stopping cars, setting cars on fire, destroying property, fighting police, throwing stuff at police horses. Next day in the paper, we got some rowdy teenagers. Went to Temple University. They hired somebody out of their public health department of one of their medical schools. 3 guys, 3 of the fellas with street cred. And they went to him and they said, hey, what's up with all this violence? He goes, oh, don't worry about it. It's just some teenagers blowing off some steam. So that's why I decided, well, I'm going to start writing about this, and I'm going to write a book about it. I mean, it wasn't the first time I was writing. When I was a reporter in San Diego, I won over 50 journalism awards for big stories, big investigative stories, lots and lots of them. The biggest one I did was I got a black dude out of prison. His name is Kelvin Wiley, Kelvinwiley. Kelvin Wiley, I got him out of prison by doing a big story showing that I got new witnesses, new evidence that led to him being released from prison. That was a big deal. I mean, I was on NPR. I was all over that story was all over the country. So I knew my way around the block a little bit. And so when I started reporting this, my attitude was then is the same as now, which is I'm not really overly eager to get into causes and solutions, but I do want to stay right in the middle of it, which means, boy, there's really something going on here. This really, really inflated level of violence and criminality among black people. And as that gets bigger, the determination to be in denial, deceit, and delusion gets bigger along with it. So that's what we document in my books. My books were very well received, got a lot of great reviews. People like Sean Hannity, Thomas Sowell, Alan West, Breitbart, The Daily Caller. The LA Times called me a favorite voice for conservatives. So the books were well received, and I'm very grateful, and they still are well received, and people still read them, and they still like them. I get tons and tons and tons of mail and email from people who read the book saying, hey, here's my story. And I didn't know anybody else knew about this except me. A lot of people say, Colin, I was going to move there, but I did a little research about what you said, and I didn't move there, I moved there. And my daughter was going to go to college in Temple. I read your stuff about Temple. We sent her somewhere else. There's so many people who are just oblivious to this. So I started this whole thing out really as kind of a media story, how the reporters are misreporting this enormous criminality. But then it kind of morphed into another area, a parallel area, where a lot of people are watching the videos and they're saying, yeah, I gave this to my aunt, my uncle, my mom, or my dad, or I gave it to my niece or my nephew going to college, or I gave it to people I know live in a sketchy neighborhood, a black neighborhood. And, it really helped open their eyes about what is really happening in this country and how so many reporters are just determined not to tell us what's going on. So that was the genesis of the books. And I kind of stumbled into YouTube and videos. I think I just posted one day, and I didn't even know what it was really. I mean, I didn't. I went back a few weeks later, and it said I had like 1,200 subscribers. So I don't even know what that means. So I took a course on YouTube, found out a good way to make some easy to do videos, learned about YouTube and the algorithm and how you post things, how you tag it, how you title it, how to give yourself the best shot of being in the suggested videos. That's the big power. That's the big draw of YouTube. YouTube, the video playing part of it isn't any better or any worse than a dozen other places where you can post videos. But the great thing about YouTube is if you're, the algorithm, the YouTube algorithm, they really want to make sure you are seeing the videos that you are interested in. So that can make you or break you. For a long time, a year or two, it was kind of making me because my videos were showing up in everybody's algorithms who were interested. There was a lot of stuff going on, but a lot of people were finding me through the suggested videos. And that's one of the first things they do when you when people start, when you show up, when you end up on YouTube's S list, the first thing they do is they turn that off. Then they start dialing down your subscribers, they dial down your views, they dial down your likes and your shares, they dial down all sorts of numbers attached to your page. And that's what started happening to conservatives a couple of years ago. And they did it a little bit, then they kind of just made it more and more and more, till they finally made it impossible for a lot of people to keep a YouTube channel. Okay, so you heard the dog. You can now say you are 3 degrees of separation from Bob Marley. That dog belongs to Bob Marley's cousins who bought the house from Bob Marley's mom, whose backyard abuts my brother's backyard. Bam! Anyway, Let's wrap up this YouTube thing. So I saw in the paper the other day a story about Jared Taylor getting kicked off of Twitter. And he's bringing a lawsuit in California because in California there's a law basically saying if you can't restrict somebody's free speech if you're in a public place. So I don't know if that's going to be appealing to this lawyer or not. And another reason I want to put this on the podcast, and if you're listening to this now, that means you're one of the hardcore people. At some point, I may have to put up a GoFundMe page to see if anybody wants to help back this lawsuit. So keep an eye out for that too. You know, one of the reasons I didn't want to mess with YouTube legally, besides the stuff I already said, was I just didn't want to turn our page into a YouTube drama page, or this podcast, or my new videos over at minds.com/Colin Flaherty, is, well, you know, I think it's their company, blah, blah, blah. But, man, YouTube and Google and Facebook now control, I heard Mark Stein say this the other night on Tucker Carlson show, they control like 85% of the digital revenue on the whole damn planet. And okay, so I'm a small L libertarian. If you get big and you make a lot of money, I don't think you should be penalized for that. But at the same time, there's no doubt in my mind that between Facebook and YouTube and Google, these guys are really inflicting some really nasty things on people here. And I know it's our privilege to go out and start our own alternative places. But in the meantime, I don't know why we simply have to ignore the damage they are doing to us, the amount of effort they're spending targeting us. I mean, I don't know why we have to ignore that. I don't know why we shouldn't fight back over that. So maybe this lawsuit will be successful. Maybe we'll file it. Maybe we won't. I don't know. But at some point, I hear a lot more people are starting to talk about how YouTube, Google, and Facebook should be treated like public utilities, mainly because they've been abusing this market power that they have. They're not honest brokers of information anymore. They're just really favoring certain points of view that can really mean bad news for a lot of things like freedom that you and I really believe in. So that's where we are with the YouTube. That's where we are with Minds.com. That's where we are with the lawyer. Really appreciate all the support everybody gives me by dropping a couple coins in my cup on my PayPal account or at my house. Or you can even do that here if you want. I mean, if you hit that, I think if you look at the video on my Minds.com channel, where I post these podcasts as well, you see a little like lightning bolt. If you click on that, sometimes they send me their points on Minds.com. You accumulate points if you participate in Minds. They send me the points and I use them to boost the videos to get more people to see them. It's kind of a form of currency. Or you can contribute good old US dollars as well. So that's all good. And because I mean that the stuff we were making from YouTube really, really helped out at keeping this things going, keeping the books going, the articles going, the videos going. Kind of helped me build a wall to protect myself against these forces that would like to shut everything I do down. We're not going to let that happen. That I promise you. But I can't promise you we're not going to make a few black kids angry.